So we're going to start this evening in child's pose. We're going to see if we can come down onto the floor, but if you are a little bit tight in the knees and the hips and your back, you might find actually lying on top of the bolster, just sort of bringing that between the thighs, allowing your chest and your head to be on the bolster. Could be a nice place to be. I'm going to bring myself in. Again, up to you whether you have your knees a little wider or together. You'll get a different feeling in your spine from that. I'm going to try and bring the forehead all the way down to the ground if you're not using the bolster. I'm going to use the block underneath my head so that it's just a little bit lifted, and take the hands towards the toes. There's a little bit easier in the shoulders. They are allowed to sort of sink and spread out towards the ground. So they are in essence getting a stretch. And this is when we notice that it is tricky to breathe in this pose. It takes a little while to get used to adapting the breath. If possible, breathing in through the belly would be nice, but not essential. Ultimately, as you feel the breath coming into the body, you're going to feel the ribs expand. So getting a little bit of a stretch into the spine with this rounding effect. We're getting a little bit of a pulsing massage from the diaphragm, breathing in and out. Getting the ribs to open up a little bit. And the shoulders are getting a stretch just as the knees and ankles and hips are. I must say that I'm a little bit tight in the lower back this evening, so I can feel it, between my lower back and my glutes. Definitely aware of some residual tightness from the week. And maybe you'll be able to feel that if you're a little tight in those areas as well. Now it feels to lift up. We're going to move into Sphinx pose. So I'm going to move that bolster out to the side and move the block up towards the front end of the mat. We'll slowly untangle the legs. You might need to stretch them out a little bit to bring them back to life. But once you're ready, allow your feet to go as wide as the mat. Allow the elbows to be underneath the shoulders so you can sink the shoulders a little bit. So now the shoulders are wrapped up around the ears a little bit. They're sort of squishing together, so they're very much working in a different direction to the previous pose. And hopefully get a nice opening feeling in the lower spine as well, so moving that in a different direction. So we've moved from flexion to extension. Sorry, extension to flexion. Get it around the right way might help. But we're taking our time, and it's only one move to each side. So we're very specifically using Sphinx pose rather than anything else or any variations to look after the discs in the spine. And we move from there, bringing the feet together, allowing the hands to come underneath the chin. Take my right knee out to the side, 90 degrees to the body. The shin just follows the line of the mat then, turning the head a little bit towards the right side and the toes pointing out. The half frog pose. You can play around with the position of the head. If you had a cushion or a blanket rolled up, you might want to put that under the head. That might be more comfortable. And just allowing the inner groins to stretch, the outer hip. Putting some pressure very gently into the sacrum. And we'll slowly bring that leg back. So just sliding the knee along the ground if you're able to bring yourself back into the center. I'll take the feet out wide again. And going to lift up into Sphinx pose. Now this time if you want to lift a little higher into seal pose, you can. So you would take your hands a little wider than the shoulders, and then a sort of the lift up so the arms straight. Now in this yin version, we're very much allowing the shoulders to lift and squish together and backwards. We're feeling a comfortable compression in the lower back, and so it's easy to breathe and soft belly. If you felt whilst trying to do this that you're being trampled by a herd of goats across your lower back, I would suggest coming back down onto your elbows, because it should feel nice rather than intimidating. So I want you to be able to enjoy just resting into the pose, and only you can judge how it feels. Some people come up and then kind of decide after a minute or so that they might have overly been ambitious. and want to come back down, that's fine. Don't have to stay there just because you start. After all, perhaps only the way that you'll find out whether this is comfortable is to actually give it a try. I'm going to just ease the elbows down to the ground. Bring the hands back underneath the chin, slide the feet in towards the center line, and taking the left knee out 90 degrees-ish, as we did before on the right side, but just on the left. And turning the head that way as well. And we'll carefully bring that leg back onto the mat. Allow ourselves to have a little wriggle through the hips. Now I'm going to roll gently onto a side that I like to lift from, and then draw the knees towards me and use the hands to lift up. So you decide whether you want to go left or right. We're going to come up into saddle pose next. And in my body, I'm able to sit on a single block, kind of portrait size, and down by the ankles, and then just sitting back. But you could sit very comfortably on the end of a bolster, which would be a lot higher, or something that would be a little bit between the two would be maybe 2 blocks or a block and a brick. So again, just feeling a decent stretch in the knees. The calf muscles are always going to be tight for sort of a good sort of 30 seconds to a minute. If they're too intense, you could lift up and just use your hands to roll the calves out a little bit to give yourself a bit more space. Toes pointing back, so the arch of the foot is pressing down into the floor. So again, if you have quite sort of bonily prominent arch in your foot, you might find that you want to put a blanket underneath your feet just to sort of help with the tender spots. You're able to allow yourself to sit upright. Kind of find a nice balanced position where your spine feels like it's upright and the head is just sitting on top of the spine, not leaning forwards or backwards. I'm going to take that a little further in that I'm going to start to use cow face pose for the lower part of the body. To come into that, I'm going to lift up, move the block out of the way for the moment, allow myself to bring my knees together and then slide, in my case, my right leg over the left, and then take the feet out wide and allow myself to then sit back onto the block, which obviously could be a combination of bolsters, etc. And then from there, I'm going to slowly allow myself to twist towards the right side. You can use the arm just a little bit to help draw me around. You can keep the fingertips on the back, on the ground if you wish, or you could wrap it around and just hook it into the waistband so that you can relax the shoulder a little bit behind you. But I want to be able to sit into the twist. So I need to apply just a little bit of pressure with this front arm to help with the rotation. Now then, the sort of fuller expression of cow face legs, the feet would be further forward than I have them here. So if that rotation in your hips is available to you, by all means have the feet much further forward. You could even have the shins running parallel across the front of the mat. So just using your toes to sort of wiggle around. It will change the intensity in the hip joints and the pressure in the knee joints. So move cautiously into those. Now I'm going to release the top half of the body, so I'm now facing forwards, and allow myself to take the left hand out, just a little to the side. I want to keep the palm on the ground. I'm going to lift the right arm up and just allow the arm to sit next to the ear, so the head is following the line of the spine really, and then letting the hand drop over towards the left side as I bend the elbow. So just taking it into a side bend from the twist. And then we're going to untangle ourselves. And using the hands to untangle the legs. Give them a little roll out. A little bit of movement through the spine. And then we'll come up onto the knees to take the legs around through the opposite way. So this time from the all fours position with knees on the center line. Left leg goes over the top of the right, feet go out wide. Ease my way back slowly onto the block. Wriggle the feet as far as comfortable forwards. And then allow yourself to turn this time towards the left. And we'll untangle. Facing the front for a breath or two. And then we'll take the right hand out to the side, so pretty much keeping the sitting bones on the floor and that right hand on the ground. Just letting the left arm lift up. So the arm comes to the ear, and then we just flop it over. As technical as that. And then we can release from there. Untangle the legs, nice and slowly. Just releasing tension in those tendons and ligaments and joints. Now we are going to move gently into some dragons. So we're going to come forwards with the block onto our knees. We're going to take a little breath and bring the right foot through. So it lines up on the front edge of the mat, the skin is vertical. I'm trying to slide the back leg as far away as it can, so that kneecap is going to be on the floor again. Blanket or cushion underneath will help. And then just wiggle your foot as far out as you comfortably can, so your foot is touching your fingers on the sort of towards the outer edge, so a little bit wider than perhaps you would normally come into the pose. And then we'll bring ourselves slowly up onto that front thigh, resting the forearms, and begin to let the knees sink forwards. Ideally, don't really want to travel with the knee further than the end of your toes, so if you look down, but you'll no longer be sitting with the knee directly over the ankle. It will feel a little bit wobbly. If you do start finding that challenging, concentrate on trying to gently keep your big toe joint down on the floor. That'll keep you stable. Again, your choice of whether you look to the ground and look at your foot or whether you look ahead. I would strongly recommend keeping your eyes open for this one. I'm just feeling the groin stretching down towards the floor. Bring the hands down to the ground. On the inside of that front leg, makes it easier. Just slide your foot back. And then I'm going to bring the opposite leg in. Again, you can use your hands to adjust a slightly wider setting. Onto the fingertips, allow yourself to lift the back leg and stretch the foot as far away as you can. Then ease your way up onto that thigh and start to sink in gently. So we're spending a shorter time in this than we did last week. So anything sort of over 1.5 minutes to 3 minutes is probably a nice period of time for this pose. If you try and get past 3 minutes, it can get a little intimidating in the groin and the hip. I mean, it is possible to do it, but it just takes you a lot longer to move from one side to the other, and the sort of downtime period in between the moves or between the sides is longer. And just as you start to really get to relax in, it's time to change. Go back onto all fours. Stretching back. I'm going to take the low lizard pose just as we did last week. So I'm going to draw the right foot forwards. I'm just keeping the heel very lightly on the mat, turning the toes out a little bit, and I'm going to use the bolster in front of me across the side of the mat to bring the elbows down. So I'm not coming down as low as I did last week, but still able to sink in. Shoulders are sort of rounding up around the ears, a little bit so. Found the stretch to happen there as well. And we'll move from there to the opposite side. So just bringing ourselves up, using the hands to slide around. Again, that little pause before you move into the opposite side. So just giving the sacrum and the joints in the hips a little bit of time to reestablish themselves and sink back. We'll take it across to the other leg. And using again, head position really is of choice. And even use the thumbs on the forehead to sort of help hold up if you're using a bolster as I am. And then we'll let ourselves lift up from there as well. So I'm going to come back into child's pose, but I'm going to take a wide option for my knees this time, and sitting down gently, and allow the hands to be forward this time. And still using the block underneath the head, so a little bit more lifted. Definitely getting a sense of gravity working through the spine in a different way. So the discs are starting to gap differently. And that feels pretty nice and comfortable. I'm going to carefully lift my way back up. I'm going to use the block and the bolster in combination for a back bend, a chest opener. Again, you might want to utilize a cushion along with this combination of block and bolster. So the bolster is going to go down the center line of the mat, sort of in the sort of rear half, and the block is going to be front side. I'm actually going to lean, or sit rather, on top of that block, just so that my bottom is a little bit higher, keeping the knees wide apart. I want to make sure that I'm resting on the block. So you're going to, as you start to lean back, you might need to play around a little bit. And it's going to allow that bolster to sit into the spine from where the thoracic vertebrae begin. So the first, the lower 5 vertebrae from the pelvis up are your lumbar, and then it moves into thoracic. So approximately 5 or 6 vertebrae up from the pelvis is where the beginning of the bolster is, and then just letting the whole of the body relax against that. And once you're in position and comfortable, which might take a little bit of wriggling around, you've got 2 choices with the legs. You can take the feet close towards you, wide apart, and the knees sink in. Or alternatively, you can lengthen your legs out towards the end of the mat, taking them wide again and letting the legs roll out. Those are really the 2 options that I would use, because if you take the knees wide, you start to interfere a little bit with the lower spine. And I'm trying to provide a small amount of back bend into the lower spine, but not excessive, and allowing the chest to open so my shoulders are sinking back down towards the floor and the front of the chest is flaring open and getting a bit of a stretch into the rib cage. So I'm not trying to create an excessive bend in the spine. Now, once you're down, I would stay in position. You want to try to refrain from lifting your head up to look around and see what I'm doing. I'll tell you when it's time to come out of the pose. And as we spoke of before, if you had a cushion, you could put that underneath the back of your head. That might make it a little more comfortable if you were finding this a little bit closer to the extreme rather than confident stretch. Now, when we have tight shoulders, we tend to think about the tight shoulders, but we forget about the fact that the other side of that is the chest is tight as well. So this is just allowing ourselves to open up. And the tighter you are, the more of a challenge this will be. Now stay in position, and we're prepared to bring ourselves up from this. If your legs extended out, bring the feet closer towards you, and wiggle the feet in towards the center line a little bit. We'll do two things. First of all, we're going to lift the tailbone off of the block very gently and let that move out towards the side and bring the bottom down on the floor. If you're right-handed, take your right hand around the back of your neck and use the strength of your arm just to lift your chin in towards your chest a little bit, and vice versa. Obviously, it's the other way around. And then if you'd like me, taking the right hand, you're going to roll gently off to the left side, taking your left arm out a little bit, and then you're down on the floor. You'll feel the stretch dissipate from the spine, and you'll know naturally when it's okay for you to lift up to sitting. Oh, that was interesting. You're going to take the bolster and just move that to the front of the mat or the back of the mat, on the block as well. We'll tighten it out of the way. And I'll come back up onto all fours. I'm going to take a couple of rounds of cat-cow, just gently. Again, you might need to have something underneath the knees if they're a little bit sore. And just getting a little bit of movement through the spine. Then come back into neutral. I'm going to just allow myself to sit down onto the ground. I'm going to roll onto my back again. I'm going to take a reclined supine twist, and we'll eventually come into happy baby. So adjust the wardrobe a little bit, and now down on the floor, I'm going to bring the feet in towards the center line, take the arms out in line with the chest, palms up. Move the hip a comfortable distance to the right, which really doesn't calibrate that to whether that's in inches, it's just what feels naturally right. And then allow your legs to roll down towards the left side. I'm going to take the left hand on top of that thigh as well. So a little bit more weight into the twist. Trying to keep the shoulders flat to the ground. Bottom leg can hang down by itself. Not trying to keep the knees together. If they happen to be, that's great. If they happen not to be, that's okay as well. And then we'll slowly untangle. Bring the hips back to the center. Let ourselves have a little bit of a wiggle out through the shoulders and the hips. Just rocking a bit from side to side. And when you come to be steady, allow your hips to move out towards the left. And legs down towards the right. Right hand comes up. Just Helps with the legs coming down a little bit with a bit of extra weight. And then we'll lift up carefully. And I'm going to move into happy baby. So I'm going to just draw the knees in gently, take them wide. The hands travel along the shins with the hands and the arms on the inside to start with the thighs. Bring the chin in towards the chest so that I can see what I'm doing, and take the hands gently around the outside edges of the feet, so holding onto the little toe side. Keeping the spine nice and flat on the ground. I'm going to see if I can lay the shoulders and then the back of the head down onto the ground. But carefully lift the soles of the feet directly above the knees. Tend to move one leg at a time, just find that a little bit easier to control. And quite a strong grip needed. We'll hold this for about a minute or so. Try and relax the shoulders if you can. And think of releasing your tailbone to the floor. So rather than pressing down or moving it in any way, just see if you can relax into it, letting it happen naturally. If it comes down, it's great. And if it doesn't, hopefully at least the muscles start to feel like the texture changes a fraction, even if the movement doesn't happen this easily. I'm going to gently let the feet come back in towards the groin, and then releasing the hands from the side of the feet, bring the feet to the floor, and we're ready for Shavasana. So, if your room is nice and warm in this winter period, and you're able to just lengthen your legs out along the ground, use your toes to wiggle your feet out to the corner edges, and let the hands come down by the side of your body. If your room is a little like mine, where the floor is a rather chilly place to be, then you can take a seated version of Shavasana. I'm going to use the block underneath the bottom and allow yourself to just cross the legs in whatever easy way you can do, or you can kneel um, onto the heels. You could use the bolsters underneath your body in any way. You could even wrap a blanket around you if that kept you warmer. I'm going to take in this seated position my right hand, palm facing up on top of the left, so the thumbs are pointing forwards and together. I find that nice, easy place to sit. Nice little wriggle out through the neck and then closing your eyes. So we'll just sit here and breathe. If you are lying on the ground, allow yourself to breathe a little deeper and start to stretch your wrists and ankles, fingers and toes. If you're seated, you can pretty much do the same thing. And if you're seated on the ground, you can begin to think about stretching out in any way that feels good. Now, you can do the same in the seated position, but obviously choices are a little bit less, or a little more limited. And again, if you're on the ground, just sliding the heels along towards you, bringing the knees in towards your body. Allowing the hands to just sit around the shins as you rock a little bit from side to side, maybe. Taking your final breath, rolling onto your right side and turning your chest to the ground. Use your hands to press into the floor to lift on an exhale. And slowly build yourself back into a seated posture of choice. We'll bring the hands together into prayer and close the eyes again. We'll take a longer breath from here. Begin to slowly exhale, letting the chest and the chin meet as the head drops. And as you find your belly drawn to your spine, simply bow to the floor, feeling your practice for the evening. As the breath comes back in, allowing your spine to lift with that breath. So it's easy for your head to follow, eyes can open. Namaste. Thank you for joining on this chilly winter's evening. Hope you enjoyed and felt a little bit better for having a stretch. And I'll see you again on the mat soon.